Megyn Kelly's a queen of common sense. She is about to go face-to-face with Ron DeSantis, the man who wants to be president.
The best way to prepare for an interview, I think, like this, is to think about all the questions you genuinely want an answer to and then ask them. You know, like I could go 20 deep on Ukraine if I wanted to. I definitely could do that. And maybe I will. We'll see. But I think a much more interesting way of going after it is to ask the actual hard, uncomfortable questions that you and I want answered, to do it politely. I don't want to upset him. I appreciate him granting me the interview. But this is an opportunity for him, because if he can answer me honestly, they're saying the new plan is to let Ron be Ron, quote unquote. Well, let's see Ron. Let's see the guy we fell in love with during COVID, because it actually could be a turning point for him if he does well.
What about the women's soccer team, where, again, a moment to be able to stand for the national anthem on the global stage, but no, you cannot possibly endorse the evil country of whence you come?
Trigger. You're pressing all my buttons today. I am so ticked off at those losers on the women's soccer team who couldn't bring themselves to even put their hands over their hearts for our national anthem. You know, never mind sing a bar here or there. If you don't know all the words, shame on you, especially when you're representing our country. But, you know, sing a bar here or there. The Vietnamese, who we crushed, were out there, hand on the heart, singing loudly, you know, all together. Not one felt the need to really belt it out on Team America. There was one girl, I think she was from Arizona. She did her best, but there was no belting. If that had been me, Paul, if that had been representing my country out there after a lifetime of hard work, I would have been so thrilled. I would have been singing at the top of my lungs, just like I did at my July 4th party, where I hired a marching band and dressed up in colonial wear. Okay, it's another story. But how dare they go out there and embarrass themselves and our country? You are not just there to represent yourself and your disgusting, myopic view of America. You're there to represent all of the people in this beautiful country, warts and all, yes, but all. It's not just the warts. America's about a lot more than that. Like being the free leader of the world for the past several decades, like liberating Europe in the not too distant past, like all of the blood and treasure that our military men and women have spilled to try to help others achieve freedom and escape dictatorship. Why can't you manage a hand over the heart just for that thought? Shame on them.
Now, Snow White, Barbie, they're all trying to fiddle with things from young people's past, but particularly the seven dwarfs of Snow White, who of course all just disappeared, and now they're the seven dysfunctional men, I assume.
I mean, I guess, what are we going to have? Like a lesbian, a trans person, someone in a wheelchair, someone of color? Like I don't understand. Why weren't the dwarfs enough? That should be like checking all the diversity boxes. What was so offensive about them? You know, like happy? Somebody got upset that there was a happy? Is that the problem? They hadn't been using the dwarfs as some sort of perverted, creepy guys, trolls. The dwarfs were always like a happy place for Snow White. They were like a soft place to fall. But apparently they were too offensive, because the most famous dwarf of all, Peter Dinklage, said something negative about it back in 2022, thus ruining the biggest acting roles the dwarfs had ever seen since the creation of Willy Wonka's Oompa Loompas back in the 1970s. So they're gone. We have no idea what we're getting. Some magical creatures instead, people who are tall. So Dinklage has managed to pull up the ladder behind him, if you'll pardon the pun, because ladder.
You went there, and even they've even replaced Oompa Loompas. Like Hugh Grant is an Oompa Loompa in the new Wonka movie, so they've sort of CGI'd somebody down. 100%.
Not okay.
Hugh
not
Grant.
Okay. So let's go over the list of things that are offensive. Okay, dwarfs are offensive, but only 6 out of the 7, because 1 remains. So figure that out. White people are also offensive, white women in particular, because despite the fact that she is named Snow White, she is now Latina, okay?
Oh, good,
because
good.
we can't have anyone other than a Latinx in the lead role of any Hollywood movie, unless it's The Little Mermaid, in which case you can have a woman of color play a white woman who used to be a mermaid, but mermaids now come in all shapes and sizes, and definitely not white people can't be represented there anymore. The other thing they find deeply offensive about the original Snow White is true love. That has got to go. My God, who wants that?
Yuck.
They actually have the lead actress on camera in a clip from late 2022, but it's just resurfaced now, saying this gal, Snow White, will not be saved by the prince, and she will not be dreaming about true love. She's going to be focused on becoming a leader.
God.
You have to choose. In their version of feminism, Paul, there can be no man. If you want to become like a powerful woman who earns buku bucks out in the patriarchal world, there cannot be a loving partner on your arm. Otherwise, you're a traitor. So that's the end.
Now, I talked about this over the past couple of days where I'm not really going to fall into the Barbie trap where those of us on the normal side of politics all, set our hair on fire because of a freaking movie. But what have you thought of all of the different hot takes that are around? From the very film itself that basically is a Trojan horse and flips into sort of early 2000s down with the patriarchy to, our mates who are literally setting Barbie on fire. Where are you on the cultural moment that apparently we all must have an opinion on?
Well, I haven't seen Barbie yet, but I've seen people talk about the number of times they use the word patriarchy in it. So I don't really have much of an opinion yet. But I can say this, from where I stand, it looks like the atonement tour. Barbie's atoning for her 40 years of being so disproportionately voluptuous that no woman in the world could live up to this or have a figure that way. They've already introduced all the diverse Barbies and the, disabled Barbies, and that's fine. The representation, I get it. But this is like they've been on the tour of like trying to rehab Barbie's image. And this is the ultimate exercise in that, where she realizes outside of Barbie world, she's not the one in control. She's got to deal in the real world where the men are in charge. The patriarchy reigns. Sure, tell that to any white guy trying to apply to college across the United States or Australia or any place else right now. They don't feel like they're in charge anymore. They actually feel like they need to hide their race and their gender if they want to get accepted into any MBA program or bank on Wall Street, or you could go down the list. It may still have the capital P patriarchy in the view of Barbie, but for those of us living in the real world already, Barbie, the patriarchy's been long gone, and it's a really tough time actually to be a guy.